Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Erica and today we're going to talk about the most disappointing books that I read in 2022. So I really wanted to make a video this year talking about the best books that I read in 2022, but I felt like I should also talk about maybe the ones that were a little bit disappointing in 2022. So these aren't books that are necessarily bad. They're just books that I had really high hopes for and they just didn't live up to my expectations. So let's get into it. I'm excited. The first book that I have on here is one that I actually really didn't like, and that is Forget Me Not by QB Tyler. This is it's a couple that is on the verge of getting divorced, or they already are divorced. I honestly can't remember. But either way, it's been like 6 months since they separated because the husband cheated on his wife. The book opens with our hero getting into a car accident and he loses his memory for the last 2 years. And he wakes up in the hospital and his ex-wife's there, and he still thinks they're madly in love, but she remembers everything and knows that he cheated on her. So he can't believe that he did this to her, and he tries everything to get her back, and he ends up having to move in with her. She needs to take care of him, so it's kind of like forced proximity. And I heard amazing glowing reviews for this book, and it just did not work for me. A main reason why this book didn't work for me is because the hero cheated on his wife, and then he's like trying to win her back, and then he lies to her for a big portion of the book, which really bothered me and made me really not enjoy a lot of this book. I also found it to be kind of boring, and I really don't know if I love QB Tyler's writing. So there's a few different reasons why I really didn't like this book, but yeah, it just really did not hit the mark for me, and I ended up giving it 2 stars. The next book on here was definitely disappointing, and not because it was a terrible book, just because it was from one of my favorite authors, and I only give it 3 stars. So that was A Familiar Stranger by A.R. Torre. I love A.R. Torre's thrillers. She's like one of my favorite thriller authors. She also writes romance too, but I really love her thrillers. And this was her new release, and it was just fine. I think if you are new to the thriller genre, you would really like this book, but for me it just felt really generic. Like, she got a printout of an outline and filled in her characters' names and called it good. And that feels sad to say from an author that I love so dearly, but it really just did not blow me away at all. There was like one part of the book that I was genuinely surprised at, but everything else really just fell flat. So yeah, disappointing. And I could go into the plot for this, but they're really, I don't know, I just don't even really remember it. And it basically just has to do with a woman thinking that her husband's cheating on her, and it goes from there. A next book that is just really disappointing for me, not because it's a bad book, but just because I had been hyped up so much for me, and I'd heard so much good things about it on YouTube and Instagram, and then I read it and I didn't love it that much. So that was A Love Letter to Whiskey by Candy Steiner. I heard this book was just super angsty and emotional, and it was never the right time for them to be together. And I just didn't really feel the angst, and it was never the right time for them to be together. And I feel like that was one of the flaws of the book, is that we never really saw them together. It was just them pining for each other over and over again, but we didn't have much interaction between the two. So it felt hard for me to really connect to them as a couple. So for this book, it just really fell flat for me in comparison to what I had hoped it would be. I really thought this was going to be like one of my favorite books ever. I thought it would be angsty in the way that Magnolia and BJ are angsty in Magnolia Parks, but it just wasn't. And I think that's on me for putting so much hype on the book and not on the book itself. But yeah, so this one was only 3 stars for me. Next, I have Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. This was Alice Feeney's new release, and I loved Rock, Paper, Scissors so much. It's one of my favorite thrillers of all time. I thought it was amazing. And again, this book just didn't hit that mark. It wasn't as good. I think it's partially because it's an Agatha Christie retelling. I think that's part of why it wasn't so good. I just felt like it was underwhelming. Like, everything that was revealed was underwhelming. It used a plot device that I really don't like at the end. And that's because it was following the retelling from Agatha Christie. So yeah, I don't know. This book just wasn't really it. It's about a family that goes to an island that their grandmother lives on because it's her 80th birthday, and she had heard from like a psychic or something that she wouldn't live past 80. So she's coming to have them all read the will, and they're end up being like secluded on this island, the whole family, and people start getting picked off one by one. So yeah, like I said, it was just really underwhelming. It makes me sad because Rock, Paper, Scissors was so good. Ooh, next we have a book that like I actually dislike with my whole being. And the reason why it's on the disappointing list is because I think it was the second book in the series, which was Melt for You by JT, how do you say her last name? Gessinger? I don't know. But I read Melt for You. 5 stars. Loved it. So surprised by it because I'd read one of her books in the past, or tried to, and DNF'd it and didn't like it. And I tried this book and I fell in love with it. I thought it was so good. So I decided to pick up another book in the series, which was Ache for You. And that book, awful. Absolutely awful. I hated every second of it. I don't even know why I finished the whole thing. This is the only book I've given 1 star this year. And let me tell you, I hated it so much. So this book follows a girl who gets a call that her father is in Italy and he's dying, and she needs to fly there and go see him. She owns a little dress shop, and she designs all of her own dresses. She sketches them out. Her sketchbook is like her prized possession. She loves it. So she's trying to fly to Italy, and she has her sketchbook. Ends up meeting this guy in the bar at the airport, and he ends up like seeing her sketchbook somehow. I can't remember if she shows it to him or what, but anyways, then she goes to board her flight, and they're like, there's a problem for your ticket, you can't go, we don't have any flights till like the next day or 2 or something. And she's like, that's not going to work, like my father's not going to make it, I need to go say goodbye to him, whatever. And then the man she meets in the airport comes up, and she's like, he goes, you can have my ticket. And she's like, oh my God, thank you so much. And he's like, you can have my ticket if you give me your sketchbook. And this has all of her designs. Like, it's her whole livelihood. It has all of her designs for her dress shop that she's worked so hard for. And anyways, she reluctantly gives this man her sketchbook so that he will give her his ticket to go to Italy because she needs to see her father that's dying. So that was the first thing I really didn't like. Like, you're manipulating a girl that her father is dying, and you're taking away something that's so important to her. Like, she has to choose between 2 things that are so important to her. I didn't like that. And then we get to Italy, and we find out that this man is actually her new stepbrother because her father had just gotten married before. So this guy is now her new stepbrother, and they end up seeing each other in Italy. And they start, obviously she hates him, but they start having more and more interactions because of her father's company. And yeah, so then he starts telling her that he can pay her for this. She can pay him for the sketchbook in kisses. She has to kiss him a certain amount of times to get her sketchbook back. Ew. No. Ooh, this book made me so mad. Like, I felt like this book was just disgusting and highlighted men being disgusting. Like, I don't want to read. My romance hero is not someone that acts like that. I don't know. Maybe it's someone else's, but it was not mine. And I hated this book, and I just couldn't believe that it was in the same series of a book that I just loved so much. Blows my mind. But yeah, really don't recommend this book. Hated it so much. I was like hate reading it to finish it. And I normally, if I hate a book, I DNF it, but I just like was so angry that I needed to see if she's going to end up like punching him in the face or something, because I would have. So yeah, that's that book. Next is one that is 100% my fault, and that is Haven by Asta Rose. So I heard everyone talking about how this is just like Credence. It's like the novella version of Credence, and it really is. Like, it has pretty much a really similar plot to Credence, and I loved Credence. I wanted to give it a try, but I don't like novellas. So why did I try? I don't know. Novellas never work for me because I need a slow burn most of the time, and I really need to feel like the development between characters. And in a novella, that's like not a thing. So yeah, this wasn't on me. Like, it was entertaining enough, but I just didn't feel the things that I wanted to feel. The connection, the angst, slow burn, those kind of things, because it's a novella. So I ended up giving it 2 stars, and I shouldn't have read this book to begin with because it's not something that I've ever liked. So that was on me, but yeah, it was disappointing because I wanted to love it and I didn't. Next, I have Savage Lover by Sophie Lark. And this is disappointing because I loved pretty much all of the other books in the series. And this book was just completely fell flat. I think Sophie even acknowledges that this is the weakest book. And yeah, I just didn't feel any sort of connection between our two characters. I felt like we almost never saw them together on page. And there's really no mafia even in this book. And the bank heist aspect of this book was kind of blown over. And I felt like that was the most interesting part of the book if we're not going to have like really any romance. And I could have done with less of like the corrupt cop drug thing. So yeah, I don't know. This was just disappointing because all the other books I really liked in the series. And I wanted to love this one too. And I really liked Nero as a character. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't love their story. So that's that one. Next is another book that has just gotten hyped up on YouTube. And it just didn't really work for me. And that is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. I don't know if it's the Virgin Hero thing that just didn't really work for me or what it is, but I just didn't love this book as much as everyone else. I thought it was just perfectly average. And I feel like there's another book that I've read by Mia Sheridan. What is it called? Where the Blame Lies. That one's a romantic suspense, but I feel like that book was way better than Archer's Voice and almost never talked about. So yeah, disappointing. Next is a book that maybe might be my fault too, and that is Fall Boys by Penelope Douglas. I love Penelope Douglas, but I did not read the Fall Away series, and this is like a spinoff to that series. But I was under the impression that it could be read as like on its own without reading that series, so that's what I did. And I was really lost. Like, the plot completely lost me. It was bonkers. It made no sense to me. I didn't get it. I thought the romance was really strong, though, and really, really cute, but I was just lost the whole time of the plot. So I think that might be my fault, but I'm, like, almost 100% sure that you're supposed to be able to read this book without reading the Fall Away series. So I don't think that's true. I think that you might need to, because really the plot made no sense to me, and it was just wild. So yeah, that's Fall Boys. I wanted to love it. I wanted to love Another Thing by Penelope Douglas, but that just wasn't the case. I ended up giving that 2 stars, by the way. Lastly, we have a book that was hyped up for me again and just fell flat. So this was For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. This was described a lot to be similar to like You. And I love You. I love Joe Goldberg so much. And also kind of like They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. I loved that book. And kind of dark academia. And I can see all those comparisons. I just think it wasn't done that well. I think the ending was really predictable and underwhelming. I also didn't think our main character was like that intriguing. Like, I don't know. It just didn't live up to all the hype that I wanted it to live up to. And I think that if you are looking for books like this that do that sort of like morally gray, killing people thing like Joe Goldberg and like the Lane Fargo book, They Never Learn, then this book just doesn't do it as well as those. So maybe look other places. But that's all I have for my disappointing books in 2023. I will be doing my favorite books of 2023, which I love to do positive videos over doing negative videos, but sometimes it's fun to talk about all the books we didn't like too. So that's it for me today. I'll talk to you guys soon, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.